Okay, so this is part 2 of our adding fractions. Yesterday we went through all of the steps and you guys took notes on all of that. We're going to go ahead and take notes on it again, but I'm going to do the simplified version because I've already shown you one time all the way through. And then we're going to do some practice. So go ahead and put your title in your notebook, Adding Fractions, part 2. Your I can statement, I can use the steps to add fractions. And then a real quick reminder of what the steps are. We have to, step number 1, I just put a check mark because we have to check our bottom numbers. We're looking for the numerator. If I have a fraction of like 4/8, I said that wrong earlier. We're looking at this denominator here. If I'm trying to add 4/8 with 2/4, looking at that denominator, well, it's not really going to work so much to get 8 and 4. If I already have the same denominator right here, I skip all the way down to this step, which is kind of cool. But we have to know what to do in case I don't have the same denominator. So we check those denominators. We see if they're the same. If they are not the same, we proceed right to step number 2. Step number 2, we have to find the lowest common multiple. Remember, multiples are going to be the times number. So like times 1, times 2, times 3. We have to make a chart for that to work. Okay, so we're going to go through our times 1, times 2, times 3, and find the one that they have in common. We practiced this yesterday when you were at the table. Don't skip making the chart. You have to make the chart. Unless you're in your brain, you're like, hey, I know that 5 and 20 have something in common. 5 times 4 is 20. It's going to work. That's okay. But if you absolutely have no idea what you're doing, make that chart. Don't just sit there and say, well, I don't know. Make a chart. Start going with your lowest common multiples. After you find your lowest common multiples, you have to change the fraction so that it's an equivalent fraction with a different denominator. So if I'm trying to get to 8 and I'm at 4, then I would times by 2. All right, step 4, this is the fun part, add the numerators. And the last part, which got us kind of tripped up yesterday, was the simplifying. We have to be able to simplify, and that's where we talk about the GCF, greatest common factor. Remember, factors are two numbers that multiply to get a number. So 4 and 2 are the factors. Okay, so we're going to start with a couple of different problems. The first step, we're going to go through all of our steps this time. Remember that our first step is to check those denominators. If those denominators are not the same, we're going to have to figure out what they might have in common. What is their lowest common multiple? Well, each and every one of these, the denominator isn't the same. So I'm either going to go get my fraction strips, or I'm going to make a lowest common multiple chart. And we're going to start with this top one here, or I'm sorry, this first one here, and we're going to do the 9 and the 6. Well, why do we have to do 9 and 6? Because those are denominators. We have to worry about our denominators. We'll worry about our other ones later. So 9 and 6, sorry, I'm not making a fraction of them. I am comparing their lowest common multiples. All right, 9 times 1, 6 times 1. 9 times 2, 6 times 2. 9 times 3, 6 times 3. 9 times 4, 6 times 4. Now I could keep going if I didn't have one that was in common, but as I'm looking here, I notice, hey, look, there's an 18, and there's an 18. So this tells me that for my 9, I'm going to need to multiply it by 2, and for my 6, I'm going to need to multiply it by 3, because that's times 1 times 2 times 3. So I'm going to come up here for the 9, I'm going to multiply by 2. And for the 6, I'm going to multiply by 3. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. These are two separate fractions I'm adding. So 1/9 I'm going to multiply by 2, and 5/6 I'm going to multiply by 3 to get new fractions. Now I have the same denominator. So I'm all done with my chart. I'll get rid of my chart here so I can have more space to work. On your assignment, I like to see that you're doing the chart, so just have some space where you can do your charts there. All right, so the next step is I'm going to keep the bottom number the same. So 18 is going to stay the same. Both of them have 18. But I need to add the numerators. So I'm going to do 15 plus 2. And then I go through my process of simplifying. Well, I notice that the top is one number away from the bottom. Then I think, okay, can 17 be divided evenly into 18? No way, there'd be a remainder. So my final answer is 17 over 18. Let's try the next one. All right, so I have a 3 and a 5. Definitely not the same. So I'm going to go ahead and start my lowest common multiple chart. 3, 5 times 1 times 2 times 3, still nothing, times 4, times 5, you'll notice that the times 5, I have a 15 and a 15. So the 5 I'm going to have to multiply by 3, and the 3 I'm going to have to multiply by 5. So I come up here and I say, okay, well the 3 I got to multiply by 5, and what I do to the bottom I have to do to the top. The 5 I'm going to multiply by 3, and what I do to the bottom I have to do to the top. And then I have new fractions, 3 over 15 and 5 over 15. Now I can go ahead and add them. So we got our 15 over, all right, we're going to give ourselves some space, so get rid of our chart here because we changed our fractions. On your paper, I like you to go ahead and keep your chart. And we're going to add, the 15 is going to stay the same, but we have to add the top numbers, so we have 5 plus 3, 5 plus 3. And then we simplify. Step 5 is simplify. Well, 8 is even, but 15 is not. And the only factors of 15 are 1, 3, 5, and 15. So we're not going to have a common factor there. So this is simplified. All right. I'm going to do the next one, but I'm going to give myself some more room. Okay, so the first thing we check is we have an 8 and a 7. And those are different, so we're going to go ahead and find a least common multiple. So we're going to start our chart. We have 8 and 7. Oops, I'm not making a fraction, I'm making a chart. So times 1, times 2. You could also get your fraction strips out and do it like that. So let's look at fraction strips. So looking at our fraction strips, I just chose the 7 and the 8 because that's what we were comparing, our 7 and our 8. And so they already have times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, all the way down to 12. So we're going to look to see if there's anything they have in common. Well, so far, I'm not seeing a whole lot that they have in common. 4 times 5 times 6 times 7. Man, we got to go all the way. Wait a minute. Look. A 56 and a 56. So I'm going to say that's the lowest common multiple. Even though it's really high, that's the lowest common multiple. So we're going to go back to our fraction and make those denominators be 56. Okay, so we're going to use that lowest common multiple of 56. I want to get 56 as the bottom number here, and 56 is the bottom number here. Well, what do I have to multiply 8 by to get 56? You can look at those fraction strips again and count it up. You're multiplying each of the numbers by each other to get that lowest common multiple, that denominator. What you do the bottom, you have to do the top. So here we have 7, and here we have 24. So I'm going to go ahead and add those together. And we're going to keep our denominator the same. I'm going to say denominator, that's not it. Denominator the same. And then I'm going to add my numerators, my 7 and my 24. And I'm going to tell you 31 is a prime number, so I'm not even going to go any farther than that. I am just going to leave it at that. I know it's prime, so there's not going to be anything else that is going to simplify this equation. So I am done with that. Let me show you one more method to be able to complete this so that you can do this on your own. I heard there were some people that learned how to do this last year a little bit different in Miss Huntley's room. So I'm going to show this other method, but it's totally up to you whether you use this or not. The problem with this method is at the end when you have to simplify, sometimes it gets really tricky. So this method is called the butterfly method. So here's my butterfly's wings. Boop. There's my butterfly's antenna. Here's another wing. Boop. Antenna. So down here I'm going to go ahead and multiply 4 times 5. And I'm going to get 20. Then up top I'm going to multiply 4 times 2 and put it in the antenna up there. And then I'm going to go across and multiply 5 times 3. I know it says add, but just go with me here. So then I add these two together and I just carry that 20 over here. So 15 plus 8, I get 23. You're going to get really big numbers here. And then you have to simplify from there. Well, we talked yesterday, if our top number is bigger than our bottom number, we have to do some dividing. So let's start here. We have 23 over 20. That gets too heavy, it falls into the house. And we have 20 outside. Okay, so you have to think, I have 23 items. I need a group of 20. How many groups of 20 can I make? Well, out of 23, I'm only going to be able to make one group. And then I'm going to subtract. Because I made that group of 20, I'm going to take it away. Now here was the part I saw a lot of people getting tripped up. This right here was my denominator. This is how many pieces I need to complete one full group. It's going to go over here and be my denominator still. Right here was my leftover pieces. It's going to go up here because these are the ones I had left over that couldn't make a whole. Couldn't make a whole pizza. And then my big number right here is my whole. So to simplify it, I have 1 3/20. Alright, so we've practiced a lot today. I want you to go ahead and go over to your class kick. It's going to be the same one from yesterday. and it's going to have some extra screens in it. I expect to see your notes in your notebook. If you come to me with your notes on a piece of paper, I'm going to have you recopy them into a notebook. It is your responsibility to ask me for a notebook if you need one. I am going to go ahead and give you another clue. We've had a few clues for our missing number, and no one has guessed the missing number correct yet. So, all right, your fourth clue today is the number is bigger than half of 1,000. So if you remember your other clues, that there's a 5 in the tens spot, that the number itself is even, there is an odd number in the hundreds spot, and the number is bigger than half of 1,000. All right, so head on over to those class kicks and get working. Happy mathing.